Hello, and welcome to Day by Day True Crime Stories, the podcast where we explore a different crime or justice milestone from this day in history. I'm your host, Kona Gallagher, and today is February 11th. On this day in 2023, the town of Warrington, England was shaken by a senseless and devastating crime, the murder of 16-year-old Brianna Ghey. Brianna's death wasn't just a heartbreaking loss for her family and friends. It sparked national and global conversations about hate, safety, and the experience of transgender individuals. Today, we're going to honor Brianna's life by telling her story, walking through the events leading to her tragic death, and exploring how justice was served for her and her loved ones. Let's get started. Brianna Ghey was only 16 years old, but she had already made a lasting impression on everyone who knew her. She lived in Warrington, England, and was in year 11 at the Birchwood Community High School. She was funny and creative and obsessed with TikTok. It was there that she shared her personality with the world, posting funny videos, lip syncs, and engaging with her followers. Her content was lighthearted and joyful. It was the kind of thing that made people smile. Her family described her as beautiful, witty, and hilarious, someone who had a special way of making people feel seen. Brianna was also transgender, and while she had so much love and support, she also faced bullying and harassment because of her identity. But despite those challenges, she embraced who she was, and she stayed true to herself. She was hopeful about the future, looking forward to all the things a teenager should. Graduation, new opportunities, and simply getting to live her life. But that future was stolen from her in the most horrific way. February 11th was a cold winter day in Warrington, and Brianna decided to spend some time with a few acquaintances. She had no idea that the people she thought she could trust, 15-year-olds Scarlett Jenkinson and Eddie Ratcliffe, had other plans. They lured Brianna into Colchester Linear Park, a quiet, wooded area. And then, in a horrific act of cruelty, they attacked her. They stabbed Brianna 28 times in the head, neck, chest, and back with a hunting knife. Witnesses later recalled hearing screams from the park, but by the time anyone arrived, it was too late. Brianna was gone. Her body was discovered on a quiet path, and within hours, the news of her murders sent shockwaves through the town. Initially, it was the brutality of the attack that horrified people, and the fact that Brianna was just a child. But as the investigation revealed more information, the community realized how much worse the attack actually was. Not only was the victim a child, but so were the perpetrators. And this wasn't just some random act of violence. It was planned, calculated, and carried out with no remorse. Jenkinson and Ratcliffe had discussed the murder beforehand, messaging each other about their dark fantasies of violence and killing. And Brianna, for reasons we may never truly understand, became their target. The police worked quickly. In the hours following Brianna's murder, both Jenkinson and Ratcliffe were arrested and brought in for questioning. At first, they gave conflicting stories and tried to place the blame on each other, but the evidence against them was overwhelming. Investigators uncovered chilling messages between the two teenagers that outlined their plans in disturbing detail. They had talked about how they wanted to kill, and they had specifically chosen Brianna. When police searched their belongings, they even found the murder weapon. That hunting knife further tied them to the crime. One of the most disturbing parts of this case was why they did it. Initially, many people assumed that Brianna was targeted because she was transgender. And while transphobia may have played a part in this, investigators concluded that the real motive was somehow even darker. They simply wanted to kill someone. But because Brianna was trans, they saw her as vulnerable and decided that she would be their victim. The trial began in late 2023 at Chester Crown Court, and the details that emerged were even more disturbing than people had feared. Prosecutors laid everything out: the weeks of planning, the disturbing conversations, and the calculated way that they carried out their murder. The defense argued that the killers were young and influenced by violent online content, but the court saw right through it. They determined that this wasn't a crime of impulse. This was a deliberate, cold-blooded act. In December 2023, Jenkinson and Ratcliffe were found guilty of murder. 2 months later, they were sentenced to life in prison, with Jenkinson receiving a minimum sentence of 22 years and Ratcliffe receiving a minimum sentence of 20 years. The judge described their actions as, quote, cold, calculated, and without remorse, end quote. Brianna's family, while relieved that justice had been served, were still left with an unfillable void. Her mother, Esther Ghey, said, quote, "No sentence can bring Brianna back, but knowing those responsible are being held accountable helps us move forward, even if the pain never goes away," end quote. Brianna's murder sparked outrage across the UK. Vigils were held and people demanded justice and better protections for transgender and other LGBTQ+ individuals. Advocacy groups pointed out that hate crimes are on the rise, and Brianna became a symbol for the fight for equality and safety. The case also shed light on the dangers of online radicalization. Even though the defense's argument didn't save Ratcliffe and Jenkinson, it did start a larger conversation. Brianna's mother, Esther, has since become a powerful advocate for reform. She has proposed a 5-point plan to regulate social media, saying, quote, "We need to act now to prevent other families from going through this kind of unimaginable loss," end quote. Her 5-point plan is, number 1, having monitoring apps already installed when you buy a phone. 2, monitoring harmful search terms. 3, a public health awareness campaign. 4, no social media apps for kids under 13. And 5, mindfulness lessons in schools. Her work pushing for safer online spaces for young people continues today. Scarlett Jenkinson and Eddie Ratcliffe are now serving life sentences for the murder of Brianna Ghey. While justice has been served, Brianna's story remains a reminder of the importance of kindness and protecting those who are most vulnerable. Thank you for joining me for today's episode of Day by Day True Crime Stories. If you found this story compelling, please subscribe, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast platform. And be sure to join me again tomorrow as we explore another significant event in true crime history. In the meantime, stay safe and remember that behind every headline is a life worth remembering. Day by Day True Crime Stories is a Little Monster production.
Hey, you can do it!